In a development that has once again sent shockwaves through the British monarchy and beyond, James Hewitt, the retired cavalry officer whose clandestine romance with Princess Diana became one of the most sensational royal scandals of the late 20th century, has returned to the spotlight to confront the one question that has refused to fade away: is he Prince Harry's biological father? For more than 3 decades, this persistent rumor has trailed the Duke of Sussex like a dark cloud, questioning his place within the royal bloodline and feeding an endless cycle of tabloid frenzy. What began as whispered speculation has evolved into a full-blown saga that touches on identity, legitimacy, and the enduring mystique surrounding Diana's tragic life. In recent interviews, Hewitt has attempted to lay the matter to rest, yet his words have only poured fresh fuel on the embers, leaving observers more uncertain than ever about where fiction ends and reality begins. Hewitt has always insisted, with varying degrees of forcefulness, that he is not Harry's father. He points the finger squarely at a voracious media that thrives on controversy and refuses to let old wounds heal. In several appearances, he has expressed genuine compassion for Harry, recognizing how corrosive it must be for a man to grow up beneath the constant murmur that the individual he calls Pa might not, in fact, be his father. Yet Hewitt's own behavior over the years has complicated any claim to innocence. Time and again he has granted interviews, posed for photographs, and made carefully ambiguous remarks that keep his name, and the rumor, alive. Critics argue that the former officer has skillfully Monetized his connection to the people's princess, turning a private love affair into a lifelong brand. One of the most eyebrow-raising moments came during a conversation with playwright John Conway, when Hewitt casually revealed that his relationship with Diana had begun more than a year before Prince Harry's birth on September 15, 1984. The admission hung in the air like smoke. If true, it placed Hewitt in Diana's life during the exact window when Harry was conceived. Hewitt immediately qualified the statement, insisting that timeline alone proves nothing and describing it as an inconvenient truth, a phrase dripping with subtext that invited endless interpretation. Was this a deliberate tease? A moment of unguarded honesty? Or a calculated way to remind the world that he still holds pieces of a puzzle no one else possesses? The contradiction with his earlier public statements is glaring. In a 2002 interview with the Sunday Mirror, Hewitt was categorical. Prince Harry was already toddling around, taking his first steps, long before Hewitt ever became Diana's lover. He claimed their 5-year affair only started after Harry's birth, rendering paternity biologically impossible. So which account should be believed? The 2002 version that seemed designed to shut the story down, or the more recent timeline that cracks the door open once again? The inconsistency has left royal commentators and the public alike struggling to separate memory from self-serving narrative. On Australian television's Sunday night program, Hewitt was pressed harder than perhaps ever before. The interviewer wasted no time on pleasantries and went directly to the heart of the matter. Hewitt responded with a mixture of nostalgia and defensiveness. He spoke warmly of Diana's magnetic presence, of long walks on windswept beaches, of stolen hours in country kitchens far from the palace glare. Falling in love with her, he said, had felt effortless, almost predestined, an affair that any reasonable person should view with understanding rather than condemnation. Yet woven through the romance was his acknowledgement that the paternity speculation weighs far more heavily on Harry than on himself. The same program delivered a second jolt when Diana's former butler, Paul Burrell, the self-styled keeper of her secrets, appeared on screen clutching a handwritten note that had previously surfaced at the 2007 to 2008 inquest into her death. In the letter, Diana expressed terror that Prince Charles, as he then was planning to engineer a car accident that would leave her dead or seriously injured, specifically mentioning sabotaged brakes and a resulting head trauma, so that he could marry Camilla Parker Bowles without impediment. Burrell conceded that some of Diana's anxieties had been shaped by the psychics and astrologers she consulted in her final years, yet stressed that she had set her fears down in her own hand, giving them a haunting credibility. The re-emergence of the notes served as a stark reminder that the darkness surrounding Diana's life extended far beyond a rumored affair. Physically, the parallels between Hewitt and Harry have always been the rumor's most potent weapon. The ginger hair, the angular features, the easy athletic bearing, side-by-side photographs have convinced generations of casual observers that biology must be at play. Even strangers on the street have remarked on the likeness. Yet royal insiders and many expert observers point to an equally compelling resemblance between Harry and his paternal grandfather, Prince Philip, in youth, as well as to certain Spencer family traits inherited through Diana herself. Red hair, after all, runs robustly through the Spencer line. Diana's own brother Charles and several nieces and nephews share the coloring. Despite the visual debate, Hewitt has long maintained that a DNA test is unnecessary because the timeline simply does not add up. In his view, people see conspiracy where only coincidence exists. The royal family itself has never once broken its public silence on the matter. No statements, no demands for testing, no acknowledgement that the rumor even merits a response. King Charles has continued to treat Harry as his son in every official and, by most accounts, private sense. Prince William's unwavering fraternal loyalty likewise signals that, within the inner circle, biological doubt is not entertained. For Harry personally, however, the psychological toll is impossible to quantify. In interviews and in his memoir Spare, he has described a lifelong sense of being the spare, the afterthought, the one who never quite fit the royal mold. While he has not directly addressed the Hewitt rumor in print, few believe it has not gnawed at him over the years. Growing up with magazines openly questioning whether you truly belong to the family that defines your identity is the stuff of profound emotional injury. Some mental health professionals who have studied the prince's journey suggest that the persistent whisper of illegitimacy may have fed into the very feelings of alienation that eventually led him to step away from senior royal duties and relocate to California with Meghan and their children. Institutionally, the monarchy has far more to lose than mere gossip column inches. Even though Harry now sits sixth in line to the throne, behind William's 3 children and himself in the order following the Prince of Wales, at the time of his birth he was third in line. Had any question mark over his parentage been substantiated, the constitutional fallout would have been seismic, raising unprecedented questions about succession, bloodline, and the very legitimacy of the crown. Republican campaigners in Britain have occasionally brandished the rumor as evidence that the hereditary principle is absurd and ripe for abolition. James Hewitt himself remains an enigmatic figure, by turns sympathetic and self-promoting. Some see a man who truly loved Diana and has spent decades paying a price for that love. Others see a social climber who betrayed a vulnerable princess and has spent the subsequent years dining out on her memory. The truth likely contains elements of both portraits. His sporadic re-entries into the public conversation, always perfectly timed for maximum attention, suggest a man who understands the commercial value of mystery. As 2025 draws to a close, the central question remains stubbornly unresolved. A conclusive DNA test could silence the speculation forever, yet none of the principals appear willing. Harry, having spent a lifetime under the rumor's shadow, would gain little and risk much. A negative result might feel like a hollow victory after decades of damage, while a positive one would detonate his world. Hewitt continues to insist no test is required. The palace, adhering to its ancient maxim never complain, never explain, will never voluntarily invite such a spectacle. In the absence of hard proof, the rumor has taken on a life of its own. More myth than fact, more symbol than substance. It has become a Rorschach test for how we view the monarchy itself, a fairy tale for some, a soap opera for others, a relic desperately in need of modern transparency for still more. For Prince Harry, the pain is doubtless more tangible. A man who has spent years searching for peace and authenticity now carries a question mark placed over his very origins before he could even speak. So where does that leave us? Perhaps the most honest answer is that the speculation has outlived its usefulness, except, of course, to those who profit from it. The real story may not be about DNA at all, but about the lingering wounds inflicted on a young boy who grew up beneath the unrelenting gaze of a world that could never decide whether he truly belonged. Whether Prince Harry ever chooses to confront the rumor head-on or continues to rise above it, one truth remains painfully clear. Some shadows, once cast, prove impossible to outrun.